Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome you to our webinar here in the headquarters of ADDCON in Bitterfeld. Many thanks for joining us and many and best greetings to all over the world. I don't want to say too much. I give the room now for the first presenter. Please, Thore, welcome and start.
Hi, Christoph.
Thanks a lot. See you later. Hi.
Yes, hello. My name is Thore Petersen from Eilers Futtermittel. Eilers is a feed mill in North Rhine-Westphalia, northern Germany, in the middle of Germany. And we come together today talk about broilers. It will be a pleasure for me to say a few words here. Let's have a look here. Wieso geht das nicht weiter? Yes, okay. That's my theme. Try poultryhouse and litter tools and methods to the target. Let's have a look to the broiler. Let's have to look into the broiler house. Here we have a picture. See a few points. We have litter, dry litter. We have even ROS 308 broilers and clean water cups. It's very fine and antibiotic-free, drug-free broiler. And that's the reason a few points comes together, not one big point. We have to work on so much parts exactly. And that's the reason we come together with 9 speakers. Dr. Judith Ringel is ill. Best wishes from Bitterfeld to her. But we talk about E. coli-Impfung from Zoetis, Dr. Weber. We talk about Big Dutchman and litter, and Dr. Ronald Scholten is there. We have a theme from ADDCON. We talk about coccidiostat 1 year before and now. And Nesmon is a very important theme. Let's look back just a few seconds. What's going on in 2021? Chicken quality, E. coli, cellulitis, limping birds, ascites, growth rate, feed conversion. These pictures we don't like. The hatchery can work better, or the farmer in the stable, but we have to do our best. And these things we saw in 2021, we have worked hard and it becomes better, but we have to work more and more. Coccidia, Selinde will talk about coccidia a little bit later, but we saw it in the last year. It becomes better with Monimax and Maxiban and so on, but we have to look on the picture. The red thing, the blood, is inside not so lucky. It's every time good to be in the near of the birds and have a look into the birds with the animal doctor, with a scissor. We can make it open, and so maybe we see Clostridia too. Not so nice, but if we saw the things on the right time, we can work against. But what to do? What works? Fast and cost effective. That's the question. What is to do at first, at second, and so on? Maybe rearing of chicken is similar to car driving, but how do we put horsepower on the road? Fast, effective, efficiently, and soon CO2 neutrally. That can be a question. Let's have a look. That's the car, an easy car. I think everybody can drive this car. That's my private car, my dog car. My dog is Icar and Foxed Labrador with his own car in the garage and the other cars, but not my cars and not my garage. Just one picture and an easy car maybe. But if you see inside, oh, it's no automatic. It's a gear shift. It becomes not easier. And the question was how to bring the horsepower on the road. Like my dog. My dog works on the road. And so we come together with 9 speakers and like a quality circle and to bring you themes near from broiler. That's the reason for this day today, and we hope it's very interesting for you. My part now, the last years we work with efficient Kräuter Stallhygiene, it means herbs, and MSB Stallhygiene, lactic acid bacteria. After the disinfection, we worked with herbs, and we have a paper, you can see it. It's an extra point of disinfection with the herbs, and we bring positive bacteria into the house with the lactic bacteria. And it works against bacteria, fungi, and viruses, maybe. We have a paper, one side, and we make it on Monday and Wednesday with MSBs, with lactic acid bacteria, and on Friday, every Friday, with herbs. In the house, we have to be look onto the downtime, cleaning, and then disinfection. After the preheating, not too much temperature on the floor. 29.5 is enough. The litter is one big time theme, and Constantin Söffing will be talk about litter too. Run the feeding, unhook, flute the pens, kind pressure on the part paper, and flushing the water, and the broiler from the hatchery. This is a kind pressure. It means it's 20 grams per chicken for the first 0 day. It could be with fish meal, blood cells, salmon oil, and so on. Also available is non-GMO if you need it. And the reason for the kind pressure is in this picture. 23 minutes after chicken placement, we saw the chicken all over the house. Very nice. You know what's the reason for prevention? The growth becomes more and more. The immunity system is better, and it's good to make it better. Support chicken before a problem occur. And from the parent stocks through the hatchery to the broiler house, we have to work. And if the production data is okay and it becomes better and better, then it works. Bring the horsepower on the road. Above all, it's the management of parent stock. That's the first way. House biosecurity, drinker biosecurity, vitamins, mineral, calcium, egg storage biosecurity, collecting, hatching eggs from the farm to the hatchery, and so on. And the next step is the hatchery with biosecurity, hatching egg, age, and so on. I think Anton de Jong will talk about neston, and I know very good pictures from neston, and we make it in the practice, and it's a very good way. And then thereafter, the final step is the broiler farm, and there can we work like a farmer. And my theme, the dry litter in the poultry house. What's the way? One way is with negative pressure ventilation in the cycle, door closed. Maybe with the second door here with plastic, no outside air and no drafts on the chicken, please. Another picture here you can see out, the light comes in and the air comes in too. That's not really good. Make it closed, please. That's this picture here. The door and the air can't come in because there's Tinkelstreu in plastic bags. What's the key to success? Not one point. That's the reason for our quality circle today. One point is the house, the farmer, the hatchery, the other points come together. Another point is the genetic, Ross, Cobb, I like Cobb. We have very good results with Cobb in the last 2-3 years. Collect up or take out chicken paper, low gram pressure, and show on the papers on the left-hand side, the left picture, the paper is inside, the middle, the paper is gone a little bit, but it's on the way between water and feed, and maybe there's a way where the water comes more and more, and the litter is not so dry, not so perfectly. That's the reason for the right-hand side, the picture. The birds can play with the paper, and it becomes like a toy, and claws become blunt. Low germ pressure and use litter under the paper. That's the reason to put the paper on. You see it here, one back. Left-hand side, that's not my way. In the middle and on the right-hand side, a few farmers, friends from me, work so. And the animals, the birds, are lucky with this way. And the drinking hay. Check the drinking hay twice a day, adjust accordingly. We have a paper with centimeter, which hay is okay, but we have in each house, we have so much broiler, and they show us the right way. We have to look and go in communication with the broiler. Adjust pressure of drinker line proper as well. Pressure too low, drinker cups dry, house dry, wrong way, because, and that's interesting, consideration E. coli. If you have the problem here on the left-hand side, the picture, the red point in the yellow thing is not so high, there's not enough water inside, the Druck is not hoch genug, and then the birds can't drink. And another problem is there come air from this house into the drinking line. And in the house, we have problems with small things into the air, and it comes into the drinking line. And so coli has a chance. That's not good. If I go through the stable, through the house, maybe I can't think about all the things I saw. One way in Germany is to make paper onto the door, and on the left-hand side is notice, please make the drinking line higher, all, and on the right-hand side, make the drinking lines on the back from the house higher, and the temperature plus 0.3 degree. Menu box is very interesting to see the feed in the water in the percentage, or look to the birds, to the broiler and into the menu box. What I measure, can I manage? Good management requires control. This picture is not so good because no feed in the feed pen. So the broiler can't make good results. We have to look to make it better. Be in the near of the chicken, have a look to the feed. That's from the turkey house, but it's the same. And if the water is in the air, on the left-hand side, my car there, and a farmer with a truck, and you can cut the air with a knife. It's very interesting to check our temperature points and so on. You see on the right-hand side, 24 degrees, 58 humidity. What I measure, I can manage. Good management requires control. That's the same, and have a look to the points here. You see it in green, 24, 24.8. It's okay, but the other thing here, 73.8 and 58, we have a difference, and we have to check it really quickly. That's a picture from a house, and we can see that the green points show us that we have two parts with 29.6 and 30.4. Maybe one farmer will say it's okay. I say it's not okay because it can better, and we have to make it better. Here to be in the near of the birds, talk with the chicken, with the broiler, and do our best. Here we see another example, 29.7 and 29.9. It's in the near of the same. And so we can see the Schrofrechner will be work exactly. That's perfect, so it has to be. I think Big Dutchman in the next part will talk about both and technical so on. Air inlets, negative pressure, interaction of humidity and temperature. Have a look whether it works. And it's very good to work with the technique. That's not okay. That's a problem. The red thing shows us there's a problem. That's better. It's green, and it works very good in the summer. Here we have an example. It's day 31, Woche 4, week 4, and 2 houses, left and right hand side, and the temperature shows us on the left hand side 21.5, on the right hand side 23.2. What's the question? Was right. I think us is not right because 31 days, it was a few weeks ago. 24 is okay. And if you have 2 houses, each house will have 24. Have a look. Good management requires control. The same is how many birds, how many broiler are inside, and what is the weight. 40,000, 50,000 broiler with 1 kilo, with 1.2 kilo, and so on. And so we have a scale. I think the firma Wehring, they don't make feed. Feed is Eilers Futtermittel. But if you need technique, Wehring, www.wehring.de, you can find it. Whole grain of wheat in the menu. Add broken wheat and use a good organic mixed acid from ADDCON. We worked the last 2, 3, 4 years with XL Forte from ADDCON. The new generation 3.0 is at work now in the moment in Germany from north to south. The lorries are driving and bringing it out. Another is FEZ acid. We make it too in a big box. And that's not all. Other points come together. You can ask the question, everything done? Do you know Elector? Is Elector also being used? Beetles out of the barn. Maybe we can think, hey, chicken are okay, broilers are good, but have a look exactly here on the circle. And have a look here and on the circle. We have beetles and beetles out of the barn. Use Elector, you can buy it with the animal doctor, with Eilers Futtermittel, and so on. If you have a question, give me a call. Let's talk about it. Elector, I think the last 20 years, I know it and it works every day. Good. Hey, what can we do? Prevent the organic mixed acid. We have talked about it. Mustard oil, lactic acid, garlic, oregano, pepper, and so on. Be in the near of the animals. Talk with the animals. Last year we have our webinar 1.0 on the webway. I go to our fabric and we have looked to the test station and we work on xenazid and lactosine. 1 year later we comes better around with the broiler and works with these products. It's just an example how we can work with acid and other products. On the left and right hand side we have the days. If you're interested, you can see it later. Oh, sorry. So, and for the standards from chicken perspective, all these things you need for the chicken I think the next part is with Dutchman, and they can, if you have a question, they can talk better to you what's the technical thing. But we need for the chicken drink line flushing. We need a spray cooling flushing. We need a third. Those are thrown. The third, fourth spray cooling line, feed cleaning, feed pen light, dark light, extra light on much and not so much light, structure feed, crushed wheat, and so on. And if you have these points, that's a question from my dog car, then we can bring the energy from the air here on the road and bring the horsepower on the road, and we get success more and more. And this is a paper, this is a picture. The animals are very good. The litter is okay. And another part, it comes a little bit later. Constantin Söffing talk about Dinkelstreu and Torf. It's a mixture we tested the last 2-3 months, and farmers buy it more and more. It's very interesting. That's the reason for our quality circle. That's my first part. Especially in bad weather, the chicken really want to have the proper feed. Give us a call, because with the proper feed, it's nice and dry in the house and the sun shines again. Like this picture, antibiotic-free, drug-free broiler. Thank you for your attention. My name is Thore Petersen from Eilers Futtermittel. If you are looking for a contact, you find it here on the internet. I think that's it. Thank you. Felix.
Thank you, Thore, for this interesting presentation. We still got 2 questions from participants.
Yes.
So the first question was, what percentage can the farmer get out of the chickens?
100%, because the broiler, the chicken, comes to the farm, the hatchery and the animals before are gone. You have 1 chicken in the house, and you can work with this 100%. With a bad chicken, you can make our best, and with a very good chicken, you can make our best. You have 100% and can work 100%.
Thank you very much. And the last question was, how many stables technically perfectly adjusted and measures correctly?
Sorry, if I make a check every day, if we go through the houses, we make a check and we have a look. Exactly, what is exactly, I think 100% can make the work better. They make the work very, very good. Thank you for that. But it's a little bit better, 100%, maybe. That's it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay.
You can go back to the chill out area.
Thank you.
And I hope you guys enjoyed the first presentation. So let me introduce you the next presenter. Our next guests are from Big Dutchman, Mr. Johannes Hülsmann and Mr. Christoph Wehring. Where do we hear? Christoph Wehring. Hello.
Hey.
Corona correctly. I would say that first the stage is yours, and the participants enjoy the presentation.
Perfect. Thanks for being here. I'm Johannes, and I'm happy to introduce you a little bit the direction of ventilation to keep the dry litter, what Thore just presented. And furthermore, we would like to talk to you a little bit about the actual direction and how you can save a little bit of money and also keep your barn dry. So we all know that a good barn climate is important for most of everything out of our production. With a good barn climate, we see a good animal health, we see a good feed conversion and a good average daily gain. We see also good feed intake, and all at the end is coming to produce a good flock, to have a good foot pad dermatitis with dry litter, of course. So we know the difference of the inside and the outside climate. So in the outside, we have a lot of different climates. We have high temperature, we have low temperature, we have a high humidity, especially if it's raining. We have a low humidity when it's dry, of course, it's sunny outside. And we have an average low CO2 level. But we also know this climate has to be changed to be inside the barn. So inside, we want to have an average temperature. We don't want to have this big curves up and down. And we want to have, of course, a low humidity or an average humidity to keep the barn dry and to keep the litter dry. And the CO2 level, we also know our birds produce CO2, our heaters can produce CO2. There are different factors. And to lower this curve and to flatten this curve is pretty important. So if we focus a little bit more on the humidity, we know our birds, the humidity is climbing up from day 0 to the end of the fattening period. So, and we also know we have to do a lot of stuff to keep the humidity, and we also know we have to get the water out of the barn. So especially if you see if we know our birds start to drink and eat more and more during the period. So this curves, feed and water are going parallel, quite much parallel. Water you see in the blue line, feed you see in the red line. The dark colored line or the gray line, this should be your minimum ventilation. So your minimum ventilation should be also running parallel to your water and feed intakes or consumption. So this is quite important, because you need to bring the water out of the barn. You need to bring the water what the birds are drinking out of the barn to keep your litter dry. And the droppings are always wet, more or less wet. So these droppings need to be dried off to get the barn litter dry. So a constant minimum ventilation, especially in cold weather time when we pull in cold and humid air, is pretty important. So here you see a lot of different curves. To explain the curves at first, you see the blue and I think it looks like green on the screen, curves going from the bottom left to the bottom top right corner. And this is more or less water and feed intake. In the top, you see a big blue line, and this big blue line is more or less the barn temperature. The barn temperature starts quite high and is dropping to the end of the period. On the bottom, the bottom big red circle, you see on this farm, you see the minimum ventilation. And this minimum ventilation do not look like it should be. It looks like a standard or not adjusted minimum ventilation. And the problem with this minimum ventilation is you probably don't have good barn climate, especially at the end. You would have wet litter, and you also would see or feel in the barn a bad climate. So, and this bottom line curve needs to be adjusted. This probably should take a few flocks to adjust manually the minimum ventilation according to your needs. If you go to the next screen, you also see the small blue line and the small green line, what is again the feed and water intake, and you see the blue line, what is again the barn temperature. But you also see the orange line, what is the kind of average line of the minimum ventilation, and the black line behind it is the actual minimum ventilation on this flock. So, and here you can see this minimum ventilation has been adjusted day by day, step by step, to go to a perfect minimum ventilation. So how do we keep that? Of course, this minimum ventilation is working according also with heating. So especially in the beginning, if you pull out air, you bring in cold air, you have to heat more. You have to use gas. You have to use different types of heating systems to keep the barn temperature as it should be. And that you see according to the blue line, of course, that if you adjust the barn temperature, and there are dots up and down, but in average it's quite good. But on the blue line, you also don't see any big changes in the barn temperature. And this should be how it looks like. So at the end of this flock, you see a good dry litter, you see good food pads, and especially you see a good healthy flock. But of course, this is costing money. This is costing money, especially because you have to heat more the barn. So, but let me explain that this is a little bit how you can keep dry litter. So especially. So what can you do if you produce heat, you pull it out? What is the best way to save also at the end money to reduce the heating costs? Is one of our topics. We would like to introduce you our heat recovery project, ERNIE. This heat recovery container or this heat recovery project is saving up to 60% of your gas, and at the end producing more or less by itself dry litter, a good flock, and a good happy farmer. And I'm now happy to pass over to my colleague who is introducing you more in detail our heat recovery Ernie. Thank you.
Yeah, hello and welcome. I'm Christoph Wehring from Big Dutchman, and now I want to show you the Ernie. Like my colleague said, what is the best with the Ernie? We have warm, fresh air in the house, and we can save costs up to 60% of the gas consumption. We have continuous dehumidification, dry litter, healthier feed of the birds, less ammonia. For example, exhaust air treatment also included, like 20% less ammonia, 33% lower emissions, and this is very successful for completely batch. If you have a Ernie, for example, you have not such high consumptions and also dry litter. Here you can see the difference between winter and summer. For example, in the winter, the Ernie is still running a lot more like in the summer because of the temperature, which is very low. You have not such a high ventilation, and this means the ventilation is done by the Ernie. The features on the operating. Now you can see this is our Ernie. You have quite a few products in it. This is a heat exchanger element, the filter chamber, the condensation chamber, the exhaust air chamber, the fresh air chamber, and last, the inlet air chamber. This means the fresh air is coming through the fresh air chamber, it's going through the heat exchanger element, and this fresh air is blown into the house. And also the air which is coming outside the house is going to number 2, the filter chamber. Then it's going through the heat exchanger element and then with the exhaust air chamber outside the Ernie. And this means you have like a minimum ventilation for the whole flock with your Ernie. And yeah, what is this heat exchanger element? It's a cross-flow principle. This means the air does not mix. You have it not directly mixed because this is aluminium, and aluminium is like the 4 highest terminal conductivity. So you have a lot of thermal, which is giving the fresh air, and this means you can use up to 10 degrees more in the house because of this heating with the heat exchanger element. We have a thin expiry resin coating for the corrosion, and it's resistant to ammonia. This, for example, is the filter chamber. There are up to 6 filters in it, and after each batch you have like 10 centimeters dust on it. And if you want to clean it, you can do it directly in the Ernie. Otherwise, you can unlock the screws, take the filters out, and can wash them inside the house. So this is very easily, and everybody can do it. Yeah, here's another picture. This is like the whole Ernie, which not included right now is air intake on the house on the left side. And we have 2 different ways for the air circulation. This means we have at first a racetrack. This is a special bidirectional nozzle. This means you have quite few more fans in it to have a racetrack in the house, that the air distribution is very good. This is used when you have like not a very high ceiling height, like under 4 meters. When you have big houses with a high ceiling, you can use the center track. This means the fresh air is blown against a curtain, and from the curtain you have fans which are pulling or blowing the air to the end of the house, to the left, to the right. These are our 2 tracks we are using. Mostly we have like the racetrack because of very small houses, but if you have which are common more and more bigger houses, you can also use the center track. And yeah, we have three different types. From the capacity, we have one with 12,000 cubic meters. The second, the L, is 18,000, and the third, 22,000. And yeah, for example, we recommend to say that 0.4 or 0.5 cubic meters per bird are coming about the Ernie. This means when you have, for example, the Ernie M, you have 12,000 cubic meters, and this is equal to 24,000 birds. So you can easily calculate which Ernie you need. And now we're coming to the heating cost savings and the improved bird health. So the Ernie profitability is like 3 to 5 years. It's calculated on your gas consumption, on your gas costs. And you know, right now there are a lot of energy costs and gas costs are also increasing. So maybe this is quite faster than 3 to 5 years. Also, we have a high automation because we have our own control for that. This means we have a standalone possibility. If you have a control in the house, this Ernie can still stand alone. And yeah, it's a durable product. We have that quite a lot times in the field. And yeah, these are the energy costs. This is a test at a customer in Germany. So we have two different gas consumptions. We have 498,000 to 279,000 gas per kilowatt hour. This means we have minus 44% gas use because of the Ernie. But on top of it, we have to calculate the extra cost of the electrical power in the house with the Ernie because of the fans. The fans need additional electrical power. And in the future, we also have to calculate the CO2 tax because we started with it right now and it's increasing also. And then we have, after that calculation, minus 41%. This is equivalent to about 9,000 euros you can save with this Ernie. And this is a customer in Germany where we tested it. And for example, these are the CO2 taxes in Europe. We started in Germany like with 25 euro per ton. And in the future, we're going to the higher goal, like 55 euro or so on, like 86 in France. So you can see the gas costs, the CO2 tax are increasing. And in this case, the gas costs you are saving with the Ernie are quite higher and increasing also. So these are the overviews. This is the future. And I guess we can calculate it for you. We say 3 to 5 years, and then you are profitable with this Ernie. Yeah, this was the presentation about the Ernie. Thank you. I guess there were questions right now.
Okay, Johannes, Christoph, thank you very much.
Yeah,
some questions are still running from our participants. The first of all is, how do I know my gas savings?
Well, that's a good question. Actually, we have a calculation tool, and especially the gas savings are pretty much depending on the skills of the ventilation skills or of the general farm management skills. So the best would be to contact us, and I think you can find our contacts on the website to have a further closer discussion to that, because I mean, you have your actual annually gas costs at the moment. And with this tool, we can work out with your barn sizes, with your bird sizes, with number of birds. We can work out the direction. Of course, we can't say it's 100% guarantee, but it's giving a pretty good direction. Also, according to what you just saw of our test farm in Germany. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. The next question was, how can I clean the filter in the winter and how long does it take?
Okay, like we saw, you can take or unlock the filter, you can take them outside, clean them in the house, and also you have included humidification, which is using this process so you can clean it in the process, like 2 times a day, because there is an extra unit for it.
Yeah, it's going pretty much automatically during the fattening period, and high pressure air is blowing the filters 2 times a day out of dust. And at the end, you just take a normal water pipe or a high pressure cleaning tool, and you just clean the filters. Yeah, and it probably takes, wow, I would guess 1.5 hours after every flock.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And the last question was, how fast do I have a return of the investment?
Well, that's a cool question and a good point. As we see it at the moment in Germany and in whole Europe, I guess gas prices are climbing. So at the moment, it's pretty tricky to see. What we saw in the presentation, we were calculating with 4 cents gas price. At the moment, I just got the new prices this morning from a friend of mine, and he told me about 8 cents. So this return of investment is for sure coming now faster. I guess at the moment we are probably closer to 3 years than to 5 years.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you too.
See you the next time.
Yeah, perfect.
Before I introduce the next presenter, some of our participants told us that they got some technical problems, but don't worry, we work in the background for the problems, and we record this webinar so you can watch them after it's finished. So I hope this is a little bit helpful, but currently we have some problems, but we are still working on it. Our next guest, you might know because he's still on the main roster. He's this is the 4th time, right?
I think the 4th time. Yeah.
Constantin Söffing from Inno4Cons. I hope you had a good travel here back to Bitterfeld, to our head HQ, and the stage is yours. And enjoy your presentation.
Felix, thank you so much for the first time inviting me here for the seminar. And well, today I'd like to talk about, for sure, bedding, and today I talk about the absorption of bedding and the effect for an optimal climate in the stable. This is our focus, the climate in the stable. But first of all, I'd like to introduce myself a bit. So my name is Constantin Söffing. I'm the executive partner of the Inno4Cons company, which is a mid-size firm located in Neuss, Germany. And we are developing and producing natural fibers for more than 10 years now. Well, we are in the sector of natural fibers for industry and in the sector of natural fibers for the animal care branch. And here we make bedding for pets, for cows, for horses. And today I'd like to talk about our bedding, which we make for the poultry. Here we can see our standard for products, which is the Dinkel pellet. And then we have the Dinkel straw, which is a 100% broken pellet. And the Dinkel granulate is a mix of the pellet and the straw. We have 50% pellet structure and 50% broken flake structure. And then we have the Dinkel straw premium, which is a bedding who has an effect on the bacteria growth in the stable. All our products are heated so that they are very hygiene. And last but not least, I'd like to present you just a short view is the turtle. It's a toy for the chicken, for the poultry. It's our entertainment for the stable. But today we are focused on the climate in the stable, and our goal is to make a reduction of the emissions in the stable. Of course, if we have a lower emission in the stable, we have better conditions for the animals' growth, and we get better results. And when we have better results, we have a good environment for the people, for the animals. It's good for the animals, and then it's also good for our money. Then we earn money. If the animals feel good, we earn money. We have less problems. So, in my daily life, several times farmers contact me and I consult them a bit. What kind of bedding is the best for the stable? And one question every day, several times, is coming. What bedding can absorb a lot or the most? And I think this question is not really correct. It's only partly correct. Because we have to think about the release, the give up of humidity of the bedding. And just to help you to understand what I'm mentioning here is that in the stable, in the standard stable, we have, well, let's talk about 1,000 to 1,600 kg bedding. And during the whole period, we are putting around 8,000 liters humidity water inside the stable. Well, 1,000, 1,600 kg. And on the other side, we have 8,000 liters. And let's be honest, but I can't imagine that a natural fiber bedding is able to manage this huge amount of humidity. And then the question is, in the past, why does it work so good? And now we are just focused on what is happening in the stable, why, and what can we improve? What can we do to make a better bedding to improve the situation in the stable? This is the headline of this sheet at the moment. And so we have 1,000, 1,600 kg bedding and 8,000 liters humidity, and what is happening in the stable. And we found the answer. It's not that 8,000 liters are in the bedding and then we have a loose and dry bedding in the stable. No, we have a factor which is the ventilation. And the presentation before, we have heard some very interesting things about ventilation, what is possible. And here there is the bridge to the other presentation. The ventilation has a huge impact on the climate in the stable. And here we need a good ventilation who is able to release, to dry the bedding. And the bedding has to absorb the humidity if the ventilation is off. And when the ventilation is on, we have to give up the humidity. That the humidity can go out of the stable. So bedding and ventilation, it's a kind of teamwork. We need a ventilation, a high quality ventilation, and a bedding which is able to absorb, and on the other hand, to release, to give up the humidity if it's possible. And then, if both is very nice managed, we have a good result on the structure of the bedding, on the climate of the bedding. We have a reduction of the emissions. So we are not focusing on the ventilation. Big Dutchman, for example, is the specialist for that. We have some test tables with Big Dutchman ventilation. It was very good. We had good results. We were focusing on the part of the bedding for sure. And we developed the Dinkel-Torf mix, which is a two-structure bedding, which is able to absorb the humidity. And if the ventilation is on, then the bedding is able to give up the humidity, and the humidity goes out of the stable. This is the reason why we have loose bedding. And the loose bedding has an effect that the air can circulate through the bedding, and then it's getting much drier. Well, this is our new product, our innovative product for a better climate in the stable, but the bedding is just one part. We need the other part of the ventilation, and both together, good managed, have a great result in the stable. So, and that's the point where I'm at the end of my small presentation now. And well, just remember, we need both the ventilation, a high quality ventilation, which is good managed, and on the other hand, the bedding, which is able to absorb the humidity and to release the humidity out if the ventilation is on. Both together, a teamwork of ventilation and bedding fits to a good result in the stable. And well, that's the major aspect of this presentation. And now we are quite directly on the end of this presentation. Very important fact on that point, on that moment, is that we have a bedding which is in a high quality, and this is with the Dinkel granulate, the Dinkel pellets, the Dinkel straw, and the Dinkel straw premium, and our new product, the Dinkel-Torf mix. We have a high quality product, but the best bedding is just a good bedding if we have a good ventilation. And the most important factor, and now I'm coming to the end of my presentation, the most important factor is the farmer who is able to manage the ventilation and the bedding. Well, and now I'm looking for the moderator. Well, we are now at the end of this presentation, and well, maybe do we have some questions? This would be interesting. 1 second, please. So,
hello.
Hello. Nice to meet you. So now we are at the end.
We are at the end, and
yeah.
we have no questions at the moment.
No questions.
We will start.
But I think there is one question I see there. If okay,
of course,
I can put. So the question is, why should they use the Dinkel-Torf mix and not just the Torf bedding? Well, this has two points. The first point is the sustainability of the product is very important. We are thinking on the environment, and we have just a small amount of torf, of peat in our Dinkel-Torf mix, and this is much greener than if we just use only torf. And the other thing is we have a better result of the structure and of the on the absorption of the bedding. Well, that's it from my part.
Constantin, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
This is yours.
That's mine. Okay. And well, is there any questions? But I think okay.
I think it's okay. It's perfect.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. See you to the next round.
Thanks.
Okay, the first presenter is the first time here at our webinar series from Zoetis. Is that correct? Miss Dr. Rita Weber. I welcome you. And
yes.
Your turn.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you also for your invitation, and I'm really happy to present today here something about Escherichia coli infection in broilers and how vaccination may reduce mortality and use of antibiotics. Infections with avian pathogenic E. coli, also called APEC, are a primary cause of morbidity, mortality, and condemnations of carcasses in commercial poultry. The disease represents an important economic factor and impairs also animal welfare. It is also one of the most common reasons for antibiotic treatments that may again result in antibiotic resistance. E. coli is part of the commensal intestinal flora in most birds and mammals, and it can occur at concentrations up to 10 million germs per gram. But the intestine also represents the reservoir for primary and also secondary pathogenic E. coli. And there are certain potential virulence factors that enable this group of E. coli to establish also extra-intestinal infections. Wherever you start to look for E. coli in the environment of your poultry house, you will find it. So it occurs ubiquitously, and it also shows a very high tenacity. So it is really difficult to clean and disinfect. So you have to be very careful here at that point. Routes of infection include aerogenic and oral infection, local infections, but infection of eggs can also occur during formation in the oviduct or due to fecal contamination of the egg surface with subsequent penetration of the shell and membranes. So what are predisposing factors for E. coli infection? And what is especially in fattening birds quite often seen? So that can be a high infection pressure. It can be poor egg hygiene. Younger birds are more susceptible than older birds. It can be temperature, especially cold stress, poor litter conditions, and high ammonia and dust concentrations. Fast-growing breeds are more susceptible than other breeds. Overcrowding is also an important factor for disease. And of course, many viral pathogens as well as bacterial pathogens can also predispose for secondary E. coli infections. And of course, as you can see here in this picture, compromised skin barriers or compromised mucosal membranes. In broilers, so in short-living birds, colibacillosis is often multifactorial, and in addition to highly pathogenic APEC, opportunistic E. coli are the main cause. So if you have a stable, healthy bird, these opportunistic E. coli cannot cause any disease, but with all these predisposing factors, also this opportunistic E. coli can cause disease. Well, I'm going to show you some pictures you are probably pretty familiar with. So that is, first of all, omphalitis. And these chicks get infected in ovo during incubation or during hatch. due to fecal contamination of the eggshell. And that infection then can become systemic, resulting in cholesepticemia. It leads to a deprivation of nutrients and maternally derived antibodies. Survivors can be stunted and form a reservoir for other birds. Erysiculitis after inhalation of dust and contaminated with fecal material can occur. The bacteria can spread via the bloodstream. It leads to polycerositis and further inflammation of internal organs. I mentioned already that also infection through skin lesions can occur that result in inflammations with subcutaneous exudate, and subsequently we see inflammation of internal organs that again lead to increased condemnations. So what can we do against E. coli infections? It is for sure very important to narrow down vertical transmission from parent stock to progeny. So the breeders should be healthy, and ideally they also should be vaccinated against E. coli. In addition, it is very important to have a good hatching egg hygiene and hatchery hygiene. Second step would be that you should try to limit horizontal transmission by establishing high biosecurity measures and keeping up optimal husbandry conditions concerning hygiene, climate, ventilation, drinking water, bedding, etc. What is really a crucial point and what is important to keep in mind is that good vaccinal protection, especially against primary viral diseases such as infectious bronchitis and gumboro, are really of importance. What can you do in addition? You can specifically vaccinate against the effects of an E. coli infection. Now, live vaccines act like pathogens, so they imitate the pathogen-host relation. They induce local immunity, which fights off the pathogens at the point of entry. The vaccinal protection starts developing immediately after application, and the vaccine can be administered either by coarse spray or by drinking water. The time point of vaccination can be determined individually. You should just take care that no antibiotics are given 7 days before and after vaccination. What are reasons for vaccination? So what do we encounter in practice? Of course, you want to reduce mortality and condemnations. Sometimes you have susceptible broilers from old parent stock. Maybe the eggs were quite old before they got incubated. Sometimes everything is fine and you just find that your use of antibiotics is too high and you want to reduce this. So this here was a trial where the farmer and the vet already knew that the parent stock was old and that the eggs were stored more than 8 days before they were put into the hatcher. And so in the hatchery, 6 flocks, altogether 135,000 broilers were vaccinated with a live E. coli vaccine. And 15 flocks were not vaccinated and they had identical keeping conditions. So what we can see is here that the mortality could be reduced from 3.06 to 2.66%. Condemnations could also be reduced from 1.41 to 1.07%. The feed conversion in vaccinated birds was better, 1.45% in comparison to 1.58%. And also the final weight in E. coli vaccinated birds was higher with in another trial, the farmer was that is too far. So in another trial, the farmer was quite content with mortality and condemnation, so that was within normal ranges. But the use of antibiotics was quite high, and he wanted to reduce this. So he applied different vaccination schemes and applied in farm 1 the E. coli live vaccine at day 1. In the second farm at the 11th day of life, and in farm 3, some flocks at the first day of life, and others he vaccinated between the 12th and 16th day of life. In total, 51 cycles were vaccinated, 1.4 million broilers, and compared to 69 cycles that were non-vaccinated, 1.9 million broilers. And then the so-called frequency of therapy was calculated. That is the number of treated animals multiplied by the number of treatment days, multiplied by the number of active substances per drug, divided by the number of animals per flock. And, well, what could we see? In farm 1, the therapy frequency could be reduced from 14 to 4, so a huge success. In farm 2, it could be reduced from 9.1 to 5.7. And in farm 3, it could be reduced from 7 to 1.4 for the birds that were vaccinated at day 1, and to 6.6 to the birds that were vaccinated between day 12 and 16. So we can here nicely see that the time point of vaccination of the E. coli vaccine depends on the health status of the day-old chicks, and that the decision on the appropriate right timing of vaccination has to be taken individually from flock to flock. But what we also see is that an early vaccination contributes most to the reduction of antibiotics. In another field observation in which 16 vet practices participated and 54 farms, in total 453 cycles were vaccinated with an E. coli live vaccines at individual time points, and compared to 65 not vaccinated cycles. We collected the following data: use of antibiotics, mortality, condemnations, and the average daily weight gain. And then all these data were statistically evaluated. Okay, so what are the results? We saw that 20% of the non-vaccinated cycles did not need any antibiotic treatment, whereas 29.4% of the vaccinated birds didn't need any antibiotic treatment. From that, you can calculate the so-called odds ratio, and that means that the chance to use an antibiotic is 1.7 times higher in non-vaccinated flocks in comparison to vaccinated flocks. We also calculated again the therapy frequency that could only be reduced from 6 to 5.9, and the therapy index. Here for this index, you do not count every active substance, but just a drug. And here in that case, the therapy index could be reduced from 4 to 3. This really similar therapy frequency might give us an indication that a drug was used that consists of different substances, different active substances, and this can be verified by this graph here. So we also looked into the classes of antibiotics used. And first, I would like to draw your attention to the aminoglycosides and the lincosamides. You will see that about half of the vaccinated birds got lincospectin. That is what this here means. And this gives us also an indication that probably the birds with the bad chick quality first had to be treated before they could get vaccinated. Looking at the fluoroquinolones, we see that 20% of the non-vaccinated birds got, this means enrofloxacin, but only 4% of the E. coli vaccinated cycles. And looking at the polypeptides, that is colistin, we see that 39% of the non-vaccinated birds had to be treated with colistin, but only 18% of the E. coli vaccinated birds. So we can summarize, the use of colistin, enrofloxacin, and tylosin is significantly reduced in E. coli vaccinated flocks. Well, I said we have a slight indication that the chick quality of the vaccinated birds was worse in comparison to the non-vaccinated birds, but despite of this, we saw that mortality could be reduced from 3.8 to 2.9 in vaccinated birds, and this effect was statistically highly significant. We also looked whether the time point of vaccination has an impact on mortality, and looked at the mortality in birds that were vaccinated until the 9th day of life and birds that got vaccinated from the 10th day of life onwards, but here we could not see any difference. Condemnations could be reduced from 2.2% in non-vaccinated birds to 1.3% in vaccinated birds. And that was also a statistically significant effect. Looking at the average daily weight gain, we see that the vaccinated birds gained 59.3 grams every day, and the non-vaccinated birds 58.4 grams every day. So this effect was not statistically significant. Well, whenever you use the vaccine, I would really encourage you and I would recommend to calculate your return of investment. So just look at the reduction of mortality, condemnations, antibiotics. Look at the reduction of feed and the better feed conversion. And on the other hand, just calculate your spendings, for instance, for vaccine costs. And I promise you, in most cases, you will see that you get a positive return of investment. So I would like to summarize. The E. coli population is very diverse and can currently only be insufficiently characterized. The use of the E. coli live vaccine, to use it carefully, is really crucial. Mortality and condemnations can be reduced in vaccinated chickens. The health status of vaccinated broilers is stabilized and performance improved. And the use of antibiotics and therefore antibiotic resistances is also reduced. So thank you very much for your attention, and I'm awaiting your questions.
Dr. Weber, thank you very much. Pretty much interesting. We still got a few questions in the chat. The first of all was, what is the best route of the application?
Okay, so you can apply this vaccine via coarse spray or via drinking water, and there is no better or no worse way. Just make sure that the vaccine reaches the animal.
Thank you. We got probably still a live question. How much does vaccination cost per bird?
In that case, I would recommend that you turn to your responsible vet and ask him.
Okay, and the last one, can I vaccinate chickens that arrive at the farm with an E. coli infection?
No, when the birds are already infected, you can not vaccinate because you should only and always vaccinate birds that are healthy. And so these birds do not qualify for that. So in that case, if it is a severe E. coli infection, you should first treat, respect your withdrawal day of 7 days, and then vaccinate.
I see our participants are still awake. We have a few more questions.
Yeah.
Would you recommend live and attenuated vaccine for E. coli?
Yeah, I think that became pretty much clear from my presentation, that I would always encourage you to include this vaccine into your vaccination program, whether we talk about broilers, layers, or turkeys.
Thank you. So now it's time I can leave you to the additional free time and
Okay.
see us back in the German part of the webinar.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks.
The next one is also new at our webinar series. It's Mr. Dr. Ronald Scholten from Dr. Firm. And I know this is your stage and it's your part, and have a nice time.
Okay. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ronald Scholten from the company Dr. Firm, and I will explain you today something about a new technology, fermentation, what could be a game changer in poultry nutrition. So I have a small company, it's Dr. Firm. It is totally focused on helping farmers and feed mills to develop a fermentation concept solution for the animals. It can be the poultry. We have also a lot of experience in pigs and recently also in shrimp, calves and insects. I have more than 25 years of experience, both in science and practice. So let me explain today something about fermentation, and I will start with a small introduction what it is. If you look to this slide, you see several subjects, what is nowadays very important in animal protein production, as well as broiler production. You can see the feed cost, animal health, what the consumer wants, animal welfare, all of them have influence on how we are feeding the broilers. If you look to the feed cost, you see already that it is very high. The SBM is, for example, the soybean meal, but the last 2 weeks, the prices were even more increasing. So it is now very important to survive as a farmer, to have healthy animals who are using very efficient the feed. And there are some nice indications that the moistening of the feed or the fermentation of some raw materials can have a significant improvement of the health and the efficiency. Fermentation. Fermentation is a technology what is used already many thousand years in human. Examples are beer, cheese, or some conserves. Fermentation is a very simple process. You have sugar, a glucose molecule, what is transformed by microbes into certain fermentation products. And the nice thing of this process, it's a 100% natural process. You have roughly 2 types of fermentation. First, the liquid one, what has a dry matter of 20 to 35. So you have free water, it is like a liquid soup. And you have a dry fermentation, or officially the solid state fermentation, what has a dry matter of 55 to 70, and you have no free water. So these are the 2 techniques what you can use. And then you have 3 types of microbes. You can use the fungi. The main goal is to produce enzymes. So the enzymes what we are using in agriculture, like phytase, they are produced by a fermentation process with specific enzymes. You can also use yeast that is mainly used to produce ethanol, alcohol, like the alcoholic drinks, but also the bioethanol, what we use in the fuel. The third category, and on that one I like to talk today, that are the lactic acid bacteria, and the name is telling it already. The main goal is to produce lactic acid. Then something about moistened feed in poultry nutrition. If you look to Mother Nature, and if you look how we are keeping the animals nowadays in our production systems, there are two very important differences. The first is the microbial inoculation. At the left up, you see the laying hen with the chickens. And the chickens are working together with the laying hen, and by eating the manure and by eating the scent and other materials, the gastrointestinal tract is inoculated. At the right side, you see a very hygienic situation where there is almost no inoculation. The inoculation is mostly happening in the stable. Another difference is feeding. In nature, they don't eat the water and the feed separate. They eat grass, they eat sand, they eat insects. So what they eat, the water is in it. In the modern systems, we have it separate. And that might have an influence, what I will show you in the next slide. There's done quite some interesting research to look if broilers really prefer the dry feed and the water separate, or do they prefer a feed where the water is also included? Here you see two published studies. I don't will explain them in detail because of time, but what you will see in the tables, that it is very clear that a broiler prefers the feed where the water is in it. Left down, you see in green at the period 1, 90% of the feed is, they prefer to eat what is wet. So they had 2 troughs. When they had 4 troughs, also still the wet is clearly preferred with almost 95%. So a broiler wants to eat the dry feed and the water together. At the right side, you see a PhD study from Wageningen in the Netherlands, 2007. And there you see also very clear that the broilers who get the water and the feed in one product, they consume significant more, but they have also a significant better feed conversion. And if you remember my second slide with the prices of the raw materials today, and maybe they will still increase further, feed conversion will be the tool to survive as a farmer. Here it is very clear that a moistened feed is improving the feed conversion. Moistened feed is clear water. Water might be an hygienic issue. So now I will go to fermentation, because then the water is not water. It is an acidified water because nature, the lactic acid bacteria, was producing lactic acid. This one I will skip. I will go to the fermented raw materials in poultry nutrition and why there are done hundreds of studies with fermented raw materials already in chicken, in broiler or in laying hens. And I think 95% of the studies had a positive effect. And if you look to that small broiler, what has an enormous genetic capacity to grow, it can enormously eat, but what it eats is 4 or 5 hours later already in the manure. So the time to digest the feed is very short. And raw materials, feedstuffs with a high non-starch polysaccharide content will give problems because of the viscosity. And because of the very restricted time, there is no time to digest raw materials high in NSP. The 24 is the 24 hours what we use in the fermentation technology. And that 24 hours is the extra time what we are buying for digestion. It's a type of a pre-digestion technology. So instead of 4 or 5 hours, we get 28 hours because the 24 hours is the pre-digestion. And you can imagine that this will result in a better feed efficiency. And that I will show you in some slides. But first, what is the fermentation and how the feedstuff is changed? So fermentation, you make a mixture of water with the lactic acid bacteria and some feedstuffs. So not the whole feed. We are only fermenting a small part of the total diet. The technology will run the best at 36 to 38 degrees for that 1 day, and it is a pre-digestion. At the right table up, you see some parameters, and you see what is the value in dry raw materials, for example, dry wheat, and at the right side, when that raw material is fermented. And you see there a huge production of lactic acid and acetic acid. Mother Nature has the best tool to make a very good feed. That lactic acid bacteria is producing lactic acid and a little bit of acetic acid. And this combination is very strong in killing off unwanted microbes like coli, salmonella, but it is also improving the digestion of protein. The pH is going down of such a raw material. The number of lactic acid bacteria is enormously increasing to up to 1 billion colonies per gram of fermented feed. So this is the cheapest way to get a high dosage of lactic acid bacteria. And the enzymes are full active. So you don't need the enzyme in the feed. You use the enzyme, what is from nature already present in the raw materials. Barley for broilers. I'm sure most of the people will say it's impossible. Here is a study done already in the starting of the 2000 in Denmark. And at the table up, you see what is happening with the barley. The NFB is non-fermented barley, FB is fermented barley. You see the lactic acid bacteria count is enormously increasing, pH go down, a part of the fiber and a part of the soluble glucans are broken down by these bacteria and transformed into lactic acid. At the right down table, all the 3 diets had 60% barley. The first one was 0% fermented, so it was 60% not fermented. The second row column is 40% fermented, so 20% non-fermented. And the last row, all the barley was fermented. I made green what is significant different, and you see a significant better daily gain and feed conversion ratio in the first 14 days where this trial was done. Another one, canola, rapeseed for broilers. Many trials are published already in literature. Here is one of them, because this one is also showing the effect of the lactic acid bacteria and fermentation. So in the table, you see 4 columns. Con, that's the control, what is corn and soya. 20% canola meal. Same one, 20% canola meal, but the lactic acid bacteria on top. And the last one, the canola meal is fermented. And you see very clear in the red and in the green numbers that the fermented canola meal is giving the best results. Minimum equal to the control group, so we can replace the soya. Remember the second slide, 600 euro per ton. But it is also in some parameters, it is even better than a control group because of that fermentation effect. And that you see down in the intestines, the villus height and the crypt depth, what is the best indicator for the gut health. It is clearly better if you use the lactic acid bacteria or even still better, the fermented feed. So fermentation of raw materials is a very attractive method, technology, to improve the health and the efficiency of the broilers. The only big challenge is how we can implement this in practice. I will tell now something about it. The lactic acid bacteria, we are using a liquid bacteria from the company ADDCON, what we can easily dosate on the dry feed and bring it automatically into the stables. The goal is maximize the number of the active lactic acid bacteria. That's very important. They have to be active. A dry powder is doing nothing the first 1-2 hours. So we were activating that bacteria with the unique concept, technology, and to maintain a healthy gut of the broiler. The second application will be the mixing of a ferment, what is done on farm, or maybe by a feed mill, or maybe by a specialized ingredient company, into the feed. So let's say you are mixing in 10 or 20% of a fermented raw material to the other 80%. You have already some suppliers on the market. You have, for example, Hamlet Protein, who use an enzyme-treated soy. It's not completely equal to the fermented soy with lactic acid bacteria, but it is a step in the good direction. And a second company, also from Denmark, is the European Protein, who has several fermented raw materials already in the market. And I'm sure, based on the second slide, where you see the conditions in the market and the feed cost, that more farms or feed mills will step into this very exciting technology. Because there is so many literature, and now also the first experience in practice, that the health and the feed efficiency, and at the end, of course, the cost for the farmer, are improved by fermentation. And I, as Dr. Firm, I am involved in several projects or the development of concepts that also in the broiler and in the layer industry, in the coming years, we will have a technique that fermented raw materials can be used on poultry farms. Then I come to my last slide, the take-home message. Inclusion of fermented raw materials is improving the gut health and the feed efficiency in poultry. With fermentation, you can also break down anti-nutritional factors, for example, the non-starch polysaccharides, what I was talking about, but also the phytate phosphor. So we will have less phosphor, what is excreted into the manure. In soy, we can decrease the trypsin inhibitor activator, and in rapeseed, for example, the glucosinolates. And all this breakdown of the ANFs is allowing us to use new raw materials. For example, barley or wheat bran, what is high in NSP, or we can improve the inclusion rate and higher inclusion rate. And Dr. Firm will be the know-how partner regarding the development and the implementation of fermentation concepts in practice. And I want to thank you for your attention. In case you are interested in more information, or if you have questions, you will find here my data to connect me. Thank you very much for the attention.
Dr. Scholten, thank you very much for the presentation. Also quite pretty interesting. We have 2 questions for you. The first is it in practice possible to add fermented raw materials to the diet of broilers and layers?
Yes, so I give already some options how you can do it. And the coming year, so the 2022, we have running an important project that we will look to make it possible for an easy way to ferment on farm and to add it to the feed. Yep.
Thank you. And the second one was how you see the market for fermented raw materials in organic production?
Organic production or bio-production has some restrictions or challenges. First of all, the feed is, let's say, twice as expensive as in conventional. So if you have a better feed efficiency in organic, it will surely help to earn money. And a second important thing is that in organic farming, you are not allowed to use extracted soybean meal or extracted rapeseed meal. So protein is a really problem to have the good products in organic. And if, as I have shown in my slides, with fermentation, you can use other protein sources and you can improve the efficiency. So big chances in organic farming as well.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Scholten,
Yep.
we will see you at the next round.
Okay, perfect.
The next speaker I will introduce, this is his homecoming stage. He's also part of the main rooster. You all may know him. This is Dr. Christian Lückstädt. And it's your stage. It's yours.
Thank you, Felix, for the introduction. Well, again, thank you for joining us here live from the headquarters of ADDCON in Germany. Usually you would expect that I will have a discussion about the usage of organic acid, let that be in poultry or in swine or maybe also in aquaculture. However, exciting news, ADDCON has recently broadened its product portfolio. As you can see on the title, a new product segment from ADDCON. Well, we don't step too far out of our core competence. As you can see in the title, we are talking about plant-based acids, and this time about their usage in poultry nutrition. So, getting back at least into the concept of acids, acids is certainly the way forward in the years to come. When you look at several market studies, the global usage of acidifier in the feed market will reach almost $5 billion within less than 4 years' time. So the global potential for those acidifiers, and this includes also the plant-based acids, is certainly on the rise. The concept of using acidifier was certainly or originated from Europe, where it got invented, and therefore it was Europe until 2018 where the most acids have been applied in animal nutrition. However, since 2018, Asia is now the largest user of various acidifier. And until 2 weeks or 3 weeks now ago, I would have said the fastest growth with the acids appear in Eastern Europe and Asia. Unfortunately, with the current situation in Russia and the Ukraine, Eastern Europe is out of the equation here for a while. So it's Asia where we expect the fastest growth in the years to come. And furthermore, the yearly growth rate of those acidifiers can be expected to be in the range of 7% on an annual growth rate. If you compare this to the feed market growth rate, which is currently more stagnant due to the crisis, also due to various diseases like avian influenza, like the African swine fever, we expect a growth of maybe 0, so no growth, or at least less than 1%. So acidifier are outpacing the overall feed market. Why? Because they are considered green. So this is our core competence. As you probably recall, our motto, our slogan, ADDCON, green chemistry. This is where we want to be seen. This is where we are. And we think that acidifier, including those plant acids, are likely to emerge into an indispensable ingredient for all classes of animals, including poultry. So when talking about acidifier, you usually think about maybe this list over here, which is commonly found in many review articles on the usage of acidifier, starting from a very short chain. You hardly can call it a chain because it's just one carbon atom, formic acid, and then the chain gets longer to C2, C3, C4, as well as higher. So with that, the molecular weight goes up. The form of the acid changes, maybe from liquid to solid. pKa is different. Solubility in the water is different. So we have here a rather complex group of commonly used, accepted acids in animal nutrition, organic as well as inorganic. However, it has to be noticed that also plant-derived natural growth promoters may contain substances which can be described as acids. So if you look into the definition, what plant-derived extracts or natural growth promoters are, then we can say, yes, they have been studied and they had a significant role as medicinal herbs or aromatic plants in human nutrition. And we literally use this every day because spices is nothing else than plant extracts or direct plants. And they have been used to improve taste, color, but they have been also very conveniently used in the animal nutrition in order to improve health as well as production data. And based on a definition from Windisch et al. Already more than a decade ago, plant-derived additives used in poultry nutrition to increase performance have been designated phytogenic feed additives. So this is the overall group we are talking about. However, those phytogenic feed additives, this is a big complex. And so it's very likely that within that complex, you have essential oils, extracts, but you have also those plant-based acids. And it is known that those substances have action against the cell wall or cell membrane, or even against the mitochondria of different, for instance, bacteria cells. We know that they are able to disturb the cell membrane's ability to regulate the proton flow and the energy metabolism. And for sure, if you are got kicked out of energy metabolism, then for sure a cell will die, and this rather quickly. We have leakage of metabolites and ions because we have that disruption of the cell membrane. So contents of the cell will leak out. This for sure will have an inhibition impact on the growth of the cells as well. And this, you know, also from the regular organic acid, you have a collapse of the proton pump draining the ATP pool, which is what we call the ATP pace pump. So these substances have common mode of actions with the organic acids, but they have also some additional mode of action, therefore makes them very interesting for us to work with them, because they may reach to a synergy or may have an additional impact when we compare them to the use of acids alone. Well, as said, we extended our product portfolio. It will run under the name Power Plants, and you may have heard already some news about it since we had already a soft launch earlier this year. And with that, we are combining really the impact of the plant extracts with plant acids. And maybe an example for plant acid is coming from garlic. Everyone of us knows garlic, use it in its maybe in its daily kitchen. Good to know, or interesting to know, garlic has been used as a medicinal plant already since more than 4,000 years. So it's really a very old substance which is used in human nutrition. However, it has been broadened its usage also in the animal nutrition because you see all those beneficial impacts on the left-hand side. It's a rather impressive list there: antibacterial, antioxidative, antifungal, antiviral, etc. So there is a long list of potential actions which you can get from garlic. However, it's not the garlic itself, it's the substance called allicin. And allicin can be described as an ester of a sulfanic acid. So there we have a plant acid which its impact to improve the health status, for instance, of a broiler. Which leads me to this study over here, the effect of garlic extract, which is here, the sulfanic acid, on productive performance, immunity, and the antioxidant status of the broiler chickens. As you can see, daily gain highly significantly improved if you had dose-depending impact on the extract inside the animal. However, I would like to draw your attention rather to some of the more immune or other parameters which are listed here as AST or SOD, so the superoxide dismutase or the aspartate aminotransferase. Those substances can be really described, and you see the significant impact there. They can really describe the health status of the animal. as for instance the aspartase transferase, is a sign on the inflammation. So if we are reducing this, as it was shown on the data over here, you have an anti-inflammatory impact proven by the allicin, by the sulfonic acid in the animal. The immune globulin parameters, IgM, IgG, for sure are a description of the immune response of the bird, as well as then the superoxide dismutase, the SOD, shows the antioxidative status. So it shows with the sulfonic acid coming from a plant, we are able to improve the health status and then in the end, the performance of the animal. So the impact of the product, in this case here, it's a product called Power Plants OK, which is a combination out of plant extracts and plant acids, as mentioned before. We had really seen a wide range of, in this case, antibacterial impacts coming from the gram-negative side, like the E. coli, but also some of the gram-positive bacteria, like Staphylococcus aureus. And you can see with a higher dosage, you have a higher inhibition zone, proving the impact of the substance, of the product on its antibacterial action. Looking into a farm trial, this was done here in Germany in combination with an acidifier in the drinking water for broilers, which were already at a high performance level. And those broilers had an issue with what we call 21-day syndrome, which is not really a disease, but an issue related to a bacteria conglomerate coming from gram-negative as well as gram-positive bacteria. As such, using an acidifier only may not work that well because it has an impact only against the gram-negative bacteria. So the combination of those plant acids with the original organic acid gave a beneficial impact on FCR improvement as well as on mortality reduction in the birds, and therefore we had a higher European broiler index at the end of the trial. The product was literally used between day 14, day 35, and then the plant-based acids were used within those days as a flushing additive, so 5 days in a row, 5 days off, 5 days in a row, etc. Speaking about products with plant-based acids included, we are not talking only about liquid acidifier or liquid products, but we have it included also in our well-known Formi product range. And in this case, we've designed the product Formi Alpha, which consists mainly of the ADDCON trusted assay technology coming from the diformates. We enhanced this with GAA, the guanidino acetic acid, from a supplier here in Germany, and we would have loved to have Dr. Ringel speaking right after me. Unfortunately, this presentation on GAA will not happen this time. Nevertheless, we also included medium chain fatty acid, and Formi Alpha got enhanced with plant acids. So this certainly is what we call a third generation acidifier with a next generation broad spectrum product, literally, showing very promising results indeed. One of them, for instance, is that the plant acid included in Formi Alpha had demonstrated impact against the excretion or oocyst excretion during a coccidiosis challenge. As you can see, 14 days post-infection, we had a significant reduction with the positive control, which was monensine, whereas we even had a higher reduction coming from the plant acid included in the Formi Alpha, with a significant reduction rate against the negative control by 78%. So this surely gives an opportunity to reduce the threat from the coccidiosis, for instance. Because we have an improved gut morphology, we are supporting, as shown in the trials before, supporting the immune system, and most likely we will achieve a modulated inflammatory response due to the anti-inflammatory impact of the ingredients. So another trial, which was done at the Southern Poultry Research Group Institute in the USA just last year, where we were had a plan to run it against a Salmonella challenge only. However, there was some influx of necrotic enteritis, so we also had a Clostridia challenge, unwanted in the beginning. But this showed or gave us the opportunity to prove that the concept of using that next generation acidifier, including the plant acid, Formi-alpha, had really a significant improvement compared to the infected negative control, as well as to our positive control, which was the regular acidifier Formi-NDF. Yes, and there we were able to improve its feed efficiency significantly as well by almost 6%. And speaking of feed efficiency, with the current prices of raw materials, etc., this certainly will play a major role in the year to come. Okay. Plant acids and its impact in animal nutrition. Well, you have seen the impact in the animal itself by improving efficiency, reducing mortality, giving a better immune status, etc. How about an environmental impact? And some researchers have looked into this one. And here we see, for instance, some data on ammonia emissions from manure, which are put out onto the field. And after the application of the feces from either breeder, broiler layer, or turkey, you can see those ammonia emissions. Well, ammonia may not be the biggest threat to the ecosystem like methane potentially is, but it is certainly an air pollutant which can impact human and animal health while also being in agriculture. And this is a statement from TGASC, the Animal and Agricultural Institute and Ministry of Ireland, for instance. They do rather groundbreaking research in this regard. So we stepped into this one and wanted to see what can we achieve with plant acids and air pollutants. And so there was a trial run in Denmark just last year as well, where we wanted to check what impact can we have on the ammonia emissions from manure with or without the plant acid. And as you can see, right after including the plant acid on the third measurement point, right after the emission significantly decreased with the treatment, whereas they linearly increased without. So it shows that we have also here a significant impact of those plant acids on reducing ammonia degassing from manure, for instance. So with that, I think I covered many interesting fields where we can look into the near future. As said, we've just started using those plant acids in our product range, and I expect within the next months and years to come more and more rather interesting results, not only on the use in poultry nutrition, but potentially also in reduction of some gases in the manure, and thinking out of the box, certainly also using them in swine nutrition and other animals. And with that, thank you for your attention, and I would be looking forward for questions. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Christian. I noticed some questions. The first question I noticed was, how do you explain the difference in mortality in the US trial with Formi-NDF and Formi-alpha?
Okay, that was the data I showed from the US, from the Southern Poultry Research Group. Well, we believe that addition, well, in the beginning, this was a trial designed to run only against Salmonella, so we would have expected that the normal organic acids would do a proper job there, and we just wanted to check what can Formi-alpha do there. However, since we had that challenge, the unwanted challenge with the necrotic enteritis, so this is Clostridia, gram-positive bacteria, we know that the regular acidifier have a hard job in having an impact over there. So we speculate that the plant acids from the Formi-alpha, which has a demonstrated impact against gram-positive bacteria, I showed some data on the staphylococci, we believe that this impact will have also worked against the Clostridia. So that's really that combination out of an active ingredient which has an impact against gram-negative as well as gram-positive bacteria will give you the success.
Thank you. The next question, I hope I understand it in the right way. Ammonia reduction, is the ammonia reduction in the manure with the plant acid, how is that possible?
Well, this is when we submitted that substance to that trial in Denmark, we were really not sure what to expect. So when we got the data back and the researchers there said, "Oh, looks interesting. You had an impact over there," we needed to check for commonly used other substances and what researchers suggested in that way. And so right now, and this is only a belief, not yet proven yet, we believe that the addition of the plant acid into the manure modulated the gut, the fecal microbiota in the manure, and with that change of the bacteria population, you have a suppression of the ammonia production there, and therefore less is gassing out. But this really needs to be validated in the future. So there we are just at the first step, and we need to look further into that. And projects, for instance, also again in Denmark, a plant proposed in this regard.
Thank you very much. I hope all the questions are answered in the best way.
Thanks a lot.
Maybe later you have the chance to contact us, and we will still send you the presentation from you when you want it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian.
See you around.
Our next guest was also part at the second expert webinar from Hülsmann Pharma, Dr. Selinde de Vries. Hello, hello again.
Hello, thank you so much.
Close to 1 year, I guess. Exactly 1 year.
Since the last time I was here, huh?
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
So maybe some of you guys imagine her again. The stage is yours, and we are interested of your new information. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, ADDCON in general, for hosting this nice event. Thank you, Thore Petersen, for the invitation to come and talk to you about a new subject today. I hope it's a good sign that I was allowed to come back today. I'm very excited to talk to you about a new product, registered product, which is called Coxam, and the active ingredient is amprolium hydrochloride. Let's get started. In short, I will present you the introduction of Coxam, then a bit more into detail the interesting product information, then of course some data about the efficacy, and we end with some practical tips for your anticoccidial rotations. So for the introduction of Coxam, we go to the US, because Coxam was first introduced in the US in 1960. And since then, many different combinations with amprolium have been available. At this moment, amprolium is still registered by Hülsmann Pharma. It's called Amprol, not Coxam, different name, but the same active ingredient. And we know from our experience in the US that it's a very successful and very efficient anticoccidial. So I'm going to talk to you about some feedback from the US. And we have seen since 2016 a big increase of amprolium sales. And this has something to do with the non-antibiotics ever stream happening in the US since then. So they don't want to use antibiotics, and they see ionophores also as antibiotics. And therefore, the chemicals are more of interest to the poultry producers. Amprolium is also a chemical that's maybe good to mention. And some of you may know amprolium also as a veterinary medicine. It's also registered as a medicine against coccidiosis, so as a treatment. And that's also the case in the US. But interestingly, in the US, it's the only option for treating coccidiosis. Toltrazuril, as some of you know as Bicox, that we know here is not registered in the US. And also the sulfonamides have availability issues, plus it's never the first option for treatment there. This only to explain to you that it is possible to have a veterinary medicine at the same time as feed additive. And then some background information also on the anticoccidial rotation plans that they use in the US. There it's normal to make a 3-year plan for your anticoccidials. So they plan out for the coming 3 years which anticoccidials they use. And normally they only change this plan if something in the evolution of the FCR is unsatisfying. And then they change their rotation. This is to show you how the evolution was of ionophore sales and chemical sales. In the green bars, you see the 2018, the blue bars are 2019, and the red bars are from 2020. And you see very nicely a decrease of ionophore sales and an increase in chemical sales. So what we did to confirm the efficacy since Amprolium was registered, we did a meta-analysis on the 8 anticoccidial sensitivity trials that we've done. And this analysis was done in 2018. Each of the samples that we used is from a different state or complex with subsamples from several different farms. We have a very broad spectrum of samples. And these sensitivity trials were conducted in the same CRO, which is the University of Georgia, using a standardized protocol. Here I'm showing you this protocol. So it's a standardized protocol, as I said, which means that this protocol is used over the whole world, which makes it easier to compare results of such trials, no matter where you perform a trial, whether it's in Georgia or in Japan or in the Netherlands. Everyone knows what you are talking about, and therefore the results are comparable. So what you see here is a timeline from 0 to 20 days, which is the age of the birds. And in the first 12 days, you see in the blue bar, the birds are reared in a clean environment and without any coccidiostats in the feed. Then on day 12, the birds are being allocated into different groups. I will show you in the next slide which groups these were. And from that moment on that they are separated, they get the coccidiostat in the feed. Then 2 days later on day 14, they are being challenged with coccidiosis. And at the end of the trial is on day 20. From the moment that they are allocated into groups until the end of the trial, we monitor different performance parameters such as mortality, weight, and FCR. And here you see those results of the performance of the different groups that I mentioned. You see on the x-axis the UUC, which is the uninfected and untreated group, so your control group, the healthy birds. Then in the middle, you see the birds that were infected with coccidiosis but did not receive any coccidiostat in the feed. So your positive control group. And on the right, you see the green bar, which are the infected birds, but they received Amprolium as coccidiostat in the feed. As expected, the untreated, uninfected birds had the highest average daily gain, which is the height of the bars. The middle bar has the lowest average daily gain, and the Amprolium you see is in the middle between them. And then you also see some numbers written next to the small squares, which is the feed conversion rate. And also there, as expected, you see in the healthy or the negative control birds, the lowest FCR, in the positive control, the highest FCR. And you see that Amprolium was able to reduce the FCR significantly. So this trials, or these trials altogether, show you that even though Amprolium has been registered for a long time and has been used extensively in the US, it still has a very good efficacy. All right, then we go back to Europe, because I'm here talking to you today because we have the registration also in the EU as of end of November last year. And it's registered for chickens for fattening and chickens reared for laying. Here you see in the table the basic information. On the left, the target species, as I mentioned, chickens for fattening or broilers, and also chickens reared for laying. In the feed, it's registered in 125 ppm. And very important is also the withdrawal time before slaughter, which is 0 days. As I mentioned, Coxam or Amprolium is a chemical coccidiostat, and it does not have any significant antibacterial activity. Maybe for the feed mill employees or interested people, the wall adhesion factor is 1.4. The product is heat stable until 120 degrees, and interesting for everyone, is my opinion, is that the safety margin is up to 5 times, which means you can, I don't say you're allowed, but you can technically overdose this Amprolium in your feed by 5 times without any effects on the health of the birds or the performance of the birds. Also, there are no reported incompatibilities, which makes it a very, very safe chemical to use. And why is that exactly? Well, it's nice to know that of this product, there is a known mode of action. There are also anticoccidials where the mode of action is a bit, well, unknown or in a gray area. But for Amprolium, it's very clear. Amprolium is a thiamine antagonist, which means that it competes with thiamine or vitamin B on the receptor. These receptors are present on the parasite, and by blocking this receptor, it inhibits thiamine from entering the parasite, and therefore several procedures in the cell are being stopped and blocked, and this makes the parasite die. Also important to know is there are also thiamine receptors on host cells, but luckily these host cells are very less sensitive to this Amprolium than the parasite. We also know that the Amprolium works most on the first schizogony phase. As you see here, the Ameria life cycle, and I put a green square around the phase where Amprolium has its effect. So in this first stage is also where most of the lesions are being formed if there is a coccidiosis infection. And this is exactly the phase where Amprolium has the most effect. There is still room for there is room for oh, I lost the word. It can replicate. There is room for replication after this first phase, and we will see later what impact that has. But the positive thing about this is, since there is replication, the animal is still can still make his own widerstand, resistance. Which is very, very positive thing about this chemical, because some of the chemicals do not have this phase, and therefore we also call it the chemical that acts as an ionophore. All right, then to efficacy and the European studies we've done. So to register this product, we have done several ASTs or efficacy trials, And here I'm going to explain a few trials to you that were conducted between 2013 and 2016. And you see in the upper table the composition of the different inocula. That means that the feces was collected from these different countries. So the first AST was from Spain, the second came from France, and the third from Russia. And you see the difference in coccidiosis species and the number of oocysts per inoculum. Then the ASTs had slightly different way. So the first AST was with an inoculation on day 15, and they were inoculated through spray on feed. And they received Coxam in the feed from day 1. Then the second AST was, the birds were inoculated on day 14. They were inoculated through gavage, so direct inoculation in the beak of the birds. And they also received Coxam in the feed from day 1. The third trial, they were inoculated on day 16, also through gavage, but there they received Coxam in the feed from day 14. So that's 2 days before inoculation. Here we see the parasitology results of these ASTs. So on this graph, you see the total mean lesion score. So you open the intestines and you look at the physical lesions that you see in the intestines. And you see on the x-axis the 3 ASTs that I just explained. And on the light gray bars, you see again the untreated, uninfected birds, so the healthy birds, so to say. Then in the middle, the birds that were infected but did not receive any coccidiostat. And on the in the green bars, you see the birds that were infected and that received the amprolium in the feed. And as you can see, that the amprolium groups had almost all 3 of them significantly lower lesions than the positive control groups in the middle. Then here on the right, you see the oocysts per gram of feces for the 3 trials and for the 3 different groups per trial. And as I explained to you earlier with the life cycle, in the amprolium groups, there are still some higher OPGs, even though you see in the lesion scores a very big reduction. So then we continue with a different trial. This time it's a floor pen trial, which means it's a bit more similar to the field situation. This trial was done in Spain. And there were again the 3 treatments from the previous trial. So the untreated uninfected, the untreated infected, and the group that received Coxam. Of these treatments, there were 14 replicates, and each group consisted of 31 birds per pen, and there were Ross 308 meals. Inoculation was done on day 14 by spray on feed, and the samples came from Spain. Here you see a summary of the performance results of these groups. You see the groups on the left and the different parameters that were monitored. So mortality, average daily gain, the feed conversion rate, and the European Performance Index. And luckily, Coxam performed very well on all of these parameters. They were able to reduce significantly. Then here the parasitology results of the same trial. The lesion scoring results in the upper table. They were scored on 6 days post-infection, which is the day you expect the highest lesions. And Coxam performed as if there was not even infection before, because the lesions were all brought back to 0. And then again, the oocysts per gram results you see here of the 3 groups in the lower table, this time of day 6. So the highest peak you expect, then on day 14 and on day 21. And if you look a bit closer to the OPGs of Coxam, especially on the day 6, you also see that there is still some excretion of OPG, of oocysts in the feces, which makes it a leaking chemical, as we call it. So the birds are still leaking oocysts, even though they are being treated with the coccidiostat. But don't worry. As you can see from these results and from the previous trials, it's very well capable of bringing down the lesions in the birds. An extra benefit, as I mentioned briefly before, is because there are still some oocysts excreted, the birds are able to make their own immunity, which makes also the chance of creating resistance against a product very much smaller. So yeah, as I mentioned, the Coxam is a chemical, but it sometimes acts a bit as an ionophore. All right, then a bit practical. What options for rotations do we now have? I made a table with an overview of the products that are registered at this moment for broilers or chickens for fattening. I did not want to go through all of these products one by one. It's just to show you and to give you an overview that there are options. And now, luckily, with Coxam, we gave you another option for rotation. So that is very good news. So as I said, this is for broilers. Now I will show you the table for turkeys, which is unfortunately not that big, or the list is not that long. But I wanted to show you the difference. Okay, then we have Coxam. What do we do? There are different options. Our first option or first idea is to do a normal shuttle, first with Coxam in the beginning, and then end with an ionophore, which has as an advantage that you start with a leaking chemical to allow immunity development. Then the second option is to do a reverse shuttle. So you start with an ionophore, and you end the last about 10 days with Coxam. This is not done very often, but Coxam gives you this opportunity because of the 0-day withdrawal. And I think it's a very good option for people that face coccidiosis issue towards the end of the flock. By using Coxam until really the end of your rotation, so to bring down the coccidiosis lesions. And then, of course, very simple but effective program. Use Coxam from beginning to end. Again, this immunity development is a really big benefit. You don't have to worry that much if you use a chemical. Am I creating resistance? When is it going to break? With Coxam, there's really less to worry. Of course, the full program gives also a bit of rest for the people in the feed mill. No need to worry about the silos that you have to use, the changing the program. One farmer is still on the one product and it's changing on the maybe an undesired time point to another coccidiostat. With a full program, it's much easier. And of course, if you use only one product for the full cycle, you are giving your other product a pause, which is very important. So in general, about programs with Coxam, it's a new chemical, which is good. Nowadays, it is more regular that products disappear from the registration list and that new products are coming to that list. It has a 0-day withdrawal time, which is very safe. You don't need to worry about residues in slaughterhouse. It's a leaking chemical, which will help the birds develop their own immunity. And our advice is similar to other chemicals. use 1 or 2 shuttle programs per year, rotate between your chemicals, and you have the option to do a reverse shuttle. So to conclude, Amprolium is on the market since 1960 in the US, both as a medicine and a feed additive, is still very efficacious, as we proved with the 8 ASTs from 2018. Also in Europe, in our trials, we demonstrate a good efficacy. It has a clear mode of action, explaining its high margin of safety, and it's now available as a feed additive for use in rotation programs. I want to thank you for your attention, and I'm looking forward to questions.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, I have noticed 2 questions. The first one is, how does Hülsmann Pharma see the future of anticoccidials? Are you planning to register any new anticoccidials? I hope I speak it in the right way.
Yeah, well, it's a good question. Well, I said already before that it's more common that products disappear from the market than that they come to the list of registered products. We in Hülsmann Pharma are working really hard on getting more products registered. As you know, the Monimax since almost 2 years now. Now we have Coxam, and I hope I am allowed to tell you this, but we are working on a new product for turkeys, which will be a nicarbazine. So I don't know how far we are in this process, and I am not going to say when I am expecting it. But yeah, that is the good news of today. So I hope next year I will be telling you about nicarbazine.
This will be then expert webinar 6.1.
Yes.
So. Okay, what is the best method to diagnose coccidiosis?
Oh, yeah. That's very important. And unfortunately, the time for today was too short to include it in the presentation. But for us, the best method to monitor the coccidiosis in your stables is to do a regular monitoring of your lesion scores in the birds. So we advise our customers from around day 15 to 16 until day 32 to monitor regularly. Take 5 birds out of your stable and see, have a look at the physical lesions in the intestines. Then you can really see what's happening in the birds and what is, your coccidiosis status.
Thank you very much, Selinde.
Thank you.
This was the last part, but before we end this, we have one more guest. He's also new at our series from Nestborn. It's Mr. Anton de Jong. Anton, are you already here?
Yes, I am.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to our expert webinar 4.0. And I don't want to talk much. Stage is yours.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Anton de Jong. I work for the hatchery Heime van Hulst in Germany. And we work with Nestborn. Nestborn is an on-farm hatching system. A little bit company background. Heime van Hulst is part of the Yellowbird holding. The Yellowbird holding does 4 million broiler day-old chicks a week, several breeds. In Belgium, we have 2 conventional hatcheries and 1 organic hatchery. In the Netherlands, we have 1 conventional hatchery, and in Germany, Heime van Hulst, 1 conventional hatchery as well. We also work with a joint venture with Den Hatch in France, where we have 4 million, where we have 5 hatcheries, and in total 4 million day-old chicks a week. We have an export division, Incubel. They do 150 million hatching eggs and about 2 million day-old chicks per year export. In Asia, Belga, 3 hatcheries, joint venture with De Heus, 2 hatcheries in Vietnam and 1 in Myanmar. And as a hatchery group, HFHC, that's the company that holds all the licenses of Nesborn, the Nesborn company. How did Nesborn started? The birth of Nesborn was in 2015, 2016. There was a discussion on early feeding, animal welfare, on day old chicks. And why early feeding? Oh.
One moment.
Do I need to go back? I will wait, no problem. Ah, no. Ja. The bottom, the top. Yes. Oh, I can go forward. Okay. Thank you. Why early feeding? Without feed, fat and protein of the egg yolk gives energy for the chick to survive, but there's no protein left for development. The chicken doesn't die, but doesn't develop either. The protein is wasted for the energy. With feed, fat and carbohydrates of the feed give energy to the bird. The protein gives development. The chicken grows, develops 7 body day weights, etc. The creation started with with setting up a research and development department at one of our hatcheries, Vervaken Bellavie in Belgium. We had 2 questions. Shall the solution be at the level of the hatchery or at the level of a farm? Application of an existing system or own development? We chose for on-farm hatching. Do we need to go back?
I have to share some slides. I cannot. Fuck. Okay, the problem is we cannot. Share.
Presentation also.
I have to go back. Yeah. No. I have to share. We cannot show the presentation because you only can see you.
Okay, yeah, that's not enough.
One minute, please.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
Anton, kann ich reinkommen?
Ja,
Hey Anton.
Ja.
Entschuldige, grüß Sie. Abstand halten müssen wir, Maske.
Ja, kein Problem.
Aber ich sehe gerade, wir haben gerade eine kleine Baustelle, wir sind dabei mit der Technik zugange. Wir haben das ja schon gesehen, Nestborn im Stall in Schleswig-Holstein, mehrere Stellen. English, oh shit, my English is not so good. Sorry. Anton, a question. We work in Schleswig-Holstein, North Germany together with Nestborn. We saw it every way. My opinion, we saw not so much work. Whether we see in Germany from other hatcheries, the chicken, you have Nestborn, and the way you put the eggs onto the bed,
a bed of litter.
Yes.
The farmer prepares a bed of litter.
Yes.
And we come by with a truck.
Yes.
With truck and trailer with the machine on it.
Yes.
And the machine places the eggs into the bed of litter.
Yes.
And the machine that does that is the machine that you work with the machine is you work with the machine. Two people have to put the egg trays into the machine.
Yes.
And the machine does 60,000 eggs an hour.
Yes.
So,
and how many machines do you have that's now?
In the summer, we have 20 machines that are around.
Oh, that's much. Yes. For Europe. For
Europe,
work whole the world.
Yes.
USA, Canada, and so on.
Yes, we work all through the world. We use the system ourselves in our own hatchery. We're very satisfied with it. We are growing rapidly, and farmers are still happy with it. But we are we have the patent of Nestborn worldwide, and we are also we're also busy in other countries that other hatcheries implement the Nestborn system.
I think it's in German Vorteil, advantage. Ne?
It's an advantage.
Advantage. Let's say that's my question. Other hatcheries we saw from the eggs, if they come out the eggs, we have 2 or 3% eggs out in animal.
Yes.
But with Nestborn we saw I think in North Germany we have seven houses and 7 turns, also 49 turns.
Yeah.
But it's easy and it works. And you have
so with Nestborn, sorry, Thore, with Nestborn with non-hatched eggs, which is very important for the least amount of non-hatched eggs, is good candling.
Candling, what it means?
Candling is shearing.
Ah, yes, okay. But my theme in the morning was from the farmer to the hatchery and the parent stock. And I think you have own parent stocks, right?
We have own rearing farms.
Yeah.
Broiler rearing farms is Aufzucht.
Aufzucht. Yeah. Ah, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, we have own rearing farms. Our broiler breeders are all contracts.
Yes, okay. Worldwide.
Yes.
I think one of the biggest hatcheries worldwide.
I don't know. I don't know. We expanded in the last couple of years rapidly. We just saw in the presentation in Asia, in France, in Belgium, in the Netherlands, in Germany. We are expanding.
Yes, but question, give me an impulse, please. Anton, if you put, we have the target, the seal, that we want 40,000 chicken in one house. Yes. How much eggs do you inside? What's okay. Factor? How much more?
What we actually do is we place, if a farmer wants 40,000 chicks in a hatchery, we look at the results of the broiler breeder on all previous hatches, and we count how many eggs extra are needed to get 40,000 chicks.
Okay.
So what the farmer actually does is he'll get a little bit more than 40,000 eggs. On, for example, the Thursday is the day of hatch that he will normally receive his regular chicks. He now gets his eggs on a Monday. They hatch in through that period to the Thursday. And on Thursday, I always say about noon, take the non-hatched eggs out. You count them, and if you take them out and count them, you do the first day selection, and then you know how many chicks you get in your barn.
Yeah. Okay. And can we talk about the payment? I think we pay the chicken with 7 days age, right?
For us, it was from the beginning. It was there was a question from broiler farms that said, "What if a lot of chicks don't hatch or something?"
Yes.
And what we found out of that is that what we are doing now. What we are doing now is that the broiler farmer has to pay the chick amount that he has on 7 days.
Yes, okay.
So we take over his whole first week mortality. So he pays regular chick price on the chicks he has in the barn at day 7.
Yes, and the advantage from the nest spawn is too, in my opinion, that we get eggs from the hatchery, and the broiler, the chicken, never was in the hatchery, just the egg, but not.
Yeah.
Okay, it's an advantage.
Yeah. No. Okay. What's a big advantage of on-farm hatching in general is that you don't have the hatch anymore in the hatchery. You don't have cross-contaminated.
Black and white part.
Yes. You don't have all the dust. You don't have the separator. You don't have the transport, the crates, the packing in the crates, packing them out again. The chicks, they hatch in the barn.
Yeah.
They get direct access to water and feed and light, and the chicks are way more relaxed than if you compare to a regular chick. Yeah. And what we see a big advantage in the stress reduction.
Right. I saw it the same. The last month, which we started with nest spawn, and the chicken comes out from the eggs and begins to start, and the feed and the water and so on. You can't hear them so much.
No,
it's not so high from the level.
If you have 1 day old chickens in the barn that come from a hatchery,
yes,
you can hear them from the outside.
Yes, but another point, it's another way with nest spawn, is that other hatcheries are on another way or in the same way, but they make the humidity and the temperature, and they have a paper. But I think you have technical things to put one egg from plastic into.
It is other eggs. For us, a very important piece is that you monitor the eggshell temperature of those 3 days that they are in the barn. That is very important, but normally it will be very time consuming because you have to measure them every 2 hours If they're still correct, write them down, and after 2 hours, go back in the barn again. In the beginning, we had to do that because we didn't have the technique we have today. But today we place eggshell or a monitoring device into the barn, 8 pieces. They all measure 4 eggs and the room temperature of that. The room temperature of that place. For example, yesterday we placed some eggs into a barn, 4 barns, and I can check now if the temperature is too high, too low, humidity is too high, too low, or whatever.
That's a big point. In the Vergangenheit, in the last months, I saw you can check from your handy, from your smartphone, can you check the temperature with my customers, and so you're good informed, and you can talk with the customer and have a look there.
The customer himself can see it as well, and I can see it. And what I always do, the first 3-4 flocks, depending, I help the farmer out learning this system. In the end, the farmer will take over, and we just have to watch from the side.
Yes, right. But it's especially your way. The other hatcheries don't work so. They have other ways. Yeah. I think it's a very important advantage. And last point with the Verwurf, the
rejects at the hatchery.
Nee, Verwurf in the Schlachterhaus.
Yeah, rejects.
Rejects are smaller because I think, in my opinion, we have more gesunde, healthy chicken in the house, and a better rate to the slaughterhouse. The chicken has a better live, better way, and we have not so much things. So, okay, thank you for your interesting.
You see,
thank you,
webinar, we got some technical problems, but we have permitted these problems, and I think Anton, you can still start again with your presentation, and I hope nothing will happen again. I guess now it's run to that time. It's about here. It's fine.
I have to click.
Yes, it has to work. Why it does not work? Hey, give me the small one, no problem. Yes. Why it does not work?
Maybe you need to click on the presentation or something.
Yeah, I will change the battery.
Yeah, Anton, I can't see we have some time to talk about it. It's nice. I'm very interesting to nest spawn. I think one thing is sure, it's a good way, and another way to, if the technique is yet not so good to work, I'm sure at YouTube you can see.
On YouTube, if you type in nestborn, there's if you type in if you type in YouTube nestborn, you can find several videos about nestborn, about how the system works.
Yes.
They show all the advantages as well. So yeah.
And if the hatcheries worldwide are interested, I think they can give you a call. The number
they can go to the Nestborn website and
find it.
Yes.
And another point is we drive the last years together to one slaughterhouse in Germany.
Yes.
Borgmeier, we have talked together or interact together with Rewe and other firms and so on. And yes. I think the pictures we can see on YouTube, and the work is the right work to get into the house.
Yes.
Jetzt geht was.
Jetzt geht was.
Hey, it's your turn.
Thore, dank.
Have success.
The bird of Nestborn. Had that. Okay. On-farm hatching is far more than just early feeding. It's uninterrupted early feeding and water and light. The reduction of stress, welfare, like I just discussed with Thore already, but no waiting time at the hatcher, no dust, noise, temperature during hatch, piling, unpiling, separated, chick counting, transport. We all do those things with the best available practice, but it's better without. Disease, pressure, immunity, and it's a more unforced, more natural hatch. The hatch window is not that important if you do on-farm hatching. And you can have a hatch 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This is just a comparison that the University of Wageningen researched. There's a difference in temperature in a hatchery, in a hatcher, compared to on-farm. The moment of first water and feed, 48 to 60 hours in a hatchery, and on farm it's immediately. The chick handling and transport is absent, and yeah, low dust and pathogen concentration. So this is a graph that actually shows how Nesborn works. So, like I mentioned to Thore, on Thursday, when you normally will get chicks on a Thursday, you now get eggs on a Monday. Monday, the first hatch will be Monday evening, and Tuesday morning, and then the big hatch Wednesday morning. About 70% of the chicks will be there. They will have the water and feed. There are several systems of on-farm hatching with all good results, but they need an investment by the farmer, installations of modifications to the house, so no flexibility and less accessible. They might have waste or labor, and the trays, the hatching trays, if you leave them in the barn, from hygienic point, we didn't want that. And from logistics is also complicated, because afterwards there needs to be a truck coming and picking up those hatching trays. And there's a lack of participation of the hatchery after placement of the eggs. This is a video of the Nesborn system, how it works. But it's not showing, but it's on YouTube. You can see it as well on YouTube. Okay, it's also on YouTube. Yes, good. Nesborn put into practice with 7 steps towards a healthy and successful production cycle. First step is the preparation of the broiler house. The farmer needs to prepare a bed of, we prefer wood shavings for the eggs to be placed on. You can put on the barn floor whatever litter you want, but we prefer wood shavings for the bed for the eggs. Here you see it. You do it with a machine, but you can do it by hand and on several ways. The second step is the transportation of perfectly candled hatching eggs. The third step is the placement of the eggs in the broiler house on the bed of wood shavings with our egg placing machine. Step 4, which is very important, the control of the climate for optimal eggshell temperature. The hatch and directly access to feed, water and light. Handling, that's the day of hatch. You take off the non-hatched eggs, and the first day selection. The result, a healthy and successful production cycle. The Nesborn egg placing machine. Facts about the machine. It's compact and easily transportable. We can transport it by truck, or we have a car with the trailer behind it. We can also put the machine in there. The machine does about 60,000 eggs per hour, and up to 200,000 eggs on a full battery charge. I see that wrong. It's 300,000. That's a failure in the presentation. 300,000 on a full battery charge. And the machine can be cleaned and disinfected between houses and farms. The nest-borne monitoring system is our key to success. Wireless OVO scans measures axial temperature and the climate conditions into the barn. Remote, real-time, which can be watched at a website mynestborn.eu. This is a delivery document of one farmer where we type in all his information, so he gets a username and a password, and when the eggs are being placed, he can watch the temperature of his eggs. On the right bottom side, you see a scheme of the barn with the 2 beds, 1 to 4. Those are loggers, 5 to 8 as well, divided through the bed. This is how it looks on the My Nestborn website. On the top side, you see information. 4 minutes ago, it did its last updates. 0% has hatched yet. 35.2%, that's the average of room temperature from all those axial monitors. 35.2 is not the set temperature in the barn. It's the temperature is higher because the eggs produce heat as well. And then we have a 9th sensor, sensor 1. They measure humidity, temperature, and CO2. This is what is shown if all the eggs are hatched. You can see the temperature. You can see the temperature real time, but you can also see that later on. Later on, it makes a report of how the hatch went, and it all does graphs like these, where you can look where some things might happen to the barn or to the climate into the barn. This is This is a graph of one OVO scan with 4 eggs. You see how the hatch went. This is a graph for the hatch window, the percentage of hatched eggs. Sorry. The benefits for the farmer: optimal chick welfare, direct access to water, feed, and light, no stress from chick handling and transportation, dry litter, and less footpad lesions. Robust and healthy chicks, less mortality, better growth and feed conversion, better intestinal health, reduced use of antibiotics, easy implementation, no investment in broiler houses, accessible for every broiler farmer, full control with our unique nestborn monitoring platform. Benefits for slaughtering and processing plants. You can have a hatch 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with more desired target weights, better uniformity, less footpad lesions and hock burns, less rejects and improved slaughter yields, healthier birds with lower antibiotics exposure. Benefits for the customer, increasing aware of animal welfare and environmental impact of food. Chicks were born in a more natural and animal-friendly way. Very visible how newly born chicks have uninterrupted access to water, feed, and light. Low levels of antibiotics usage, limitless opportunities for creating added value. Results from practice. What we see in all the tests that we did, better final body weights, 50 to 70 grams, better feed conversion, 2 to 4 points, less antibiotics up to 50%, reduce footpad lesions scores up to 50%, more high quality chicks at day 7 up to 1%. This is a trial, Vevipork, which did a test nestborn and non-nestborn. We see less mortality in the first week, 0.31%, and a better feed conversion, 3.8 points. Points of attention. There's extra occupation and maintenance of heat in the broiler house for 2 days. Broiler houses need to be suitable for climate control. Hardware logistics for hatchery and field operators. The farmer needs to prepare the litter bed and have attention during the hatch. The non-hatch eggs has to be taken out and macerate them. You have to do the first day selection and do the vaccination of the chickens. Future-proof for the market. Nestborn is far more than just early feeding. Nestborn offers all the advantages of on-farm hatching, opportunities for partnership with the hatchery, perfect view of hatching process, teaming up for top results, low boundaries for entry, accessibility, no investment, no adaptations to the broiler house, great opportunities for positive communication and marketing. Is Nestborn something you are interested in? You can contact me or look at the website of Nestborn. The video is of Nestborn is shown at YouTube. Thank you for listening. Are there questions?
So, Anton, thank you very much. After small complications,
No problem.
we have run the presentation, but it was still good. And
Yes.
I have 2 more questions for you. The first of all, what does the farmer has to pay for Nestborn?
The farmer pays the amount of chicks he has in the barn at day 7. So that's delivered eggs minus non-hatched, minus the first day selection, and minus the mortality of the first week. The amount of chickens he has in the barn at day 7, he has to pay for chicken price, regular chick price.
Okay. The last question was, how many Nestborn is being placed?
In 2021, 140 million eggs have been placed by Nestborn.
That's very lot.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you as well.
So this was the last one, and all the presentators together here for the screen.
Ja. Work. Ich habe noch eine.
Am besten die großen da vorne. Und immer lächeln, dass man die Zähne sieht, ne? Zwei haben keine ADDCON-Maske.
Thank you again.
Jetzt mal alle linke.
See you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye bye. Okay.